Welcome, all ILEETA members and those guests that have not been part of ILEETA. We are proud to have you here. It is August. I got to keep looking at the calendar to make sure I'm at the right date. August 20th, 2025. Here for another ILEETA Live. Can you believe how fast this year is going, guys?
So fast. The summer is absolutely flying by.
And I'm a summer person. I'm not ready for the only thing I look for in fall is Husker football.
You like those L's kind of piling up, huh? Piling up L's like snow.
Where's that mute button at? Let me get that mute button. All right. Hey, we're here for another edition of ILEETA Live. We got a great guest, Frank Trammer, who will be on here just a little bit. We want to get some ILEETA news and events coming up to let you know what's going on in the world of ILEETA. And hey, how many days until the conference? I think we're at 208 days until ILEETA 2026. We got the countdown going.
But who's counting? Wow.
Yeah, who's counting? Who's counting? So it's hard to say 2026. Super hard to say that. But it'll be here before you know it. What do we have going on? We got a lot going on. Let's talk about a couple deadlines. The journal deadline coming up September 10th, less than a month away. And I know Todd just fired off his ILEETA journal article. And I got one from Duane the other day. So keep those articles coming in. If you have not written for the ILEETA journal, give us a buzz and email. We'll help you get published. It's a great publication to get your ideas and thoughts on paper in an international publication. The ILEETA proposals. Joe, when does that due?
That is due by, Brian, October 31st. And I will tell you, man, it is, we are at 56 proposals right now, which is ahead of where we've been more than 60 days out. So yeah, we are, it's going to be a great year for proposals, just looking at what's coming in so far.
Excited to see what ILEETA 2026 has to offer. Some great classes. And so get those proposals in. Halloween. By Halloween. That's
you know what's going to be interesting is with that many proposals, is there going to be a different theme? You know, it seems like each year or clusters of years, there's kind of something that strings all the classes together, or quite a few of the classes anyway.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a mental health thing or a wellness thing or de-escalation thing, things kind of move in waves a little bit here and there. I'm really curious to see what the next wave is going to bring.
Well, I can tell you this much. I'm seeing a lot more technology this year than I have in past years. But wellness is still tipping the scales. It is still a hot topic on everyone's mind, and there's a lot of great work being done in that space. But before we move on to the next piece of good news, let me ask both of you, what would you like to see? And I think we'll ask Chief when he comes on here in a minute as well. What would you like to see as some of the new topics or things maybe we haven't seen in the past or haven't seen in a while?
That's a tough question because I think we've seen everything in when it comes to instructor training. I'm just excited to see some new instructors and get to see who's up and coming in the trainer world of law enforcement and listen to them in front of a stage and get them some experience.
Yeah, I'd kind of echo the new instructor, the new presenters. I love that part. I think that, you know, as somebody who's not a technology guy, I think that's actually the one side of things that excites me the most, because it's a hole in my game, right? It's a weakness that I have, and I know that. So integrating some of the new stuff that's coming down the pipe, I think, is a really good approach to things. And then anything that deals on cultural change, changing, upgrading, modifying, improving the culture, whether it's a training division or in-service training or department or leadership group or whatever it may be. Anything that touches on culture, I really look forward to.
Love it. Yeah.
What about you, Joe?
Yeah. So from my perspective, I want to see, so there's this cusp, this really cool space where technology and real world, no kidding, boots on the ground stuff meet. And I think ILEETA 2026 could be a really cool place to see that, where you've got VR headsets over here and some of that cutting edge technology where we can take people to places they've either never been or it's hard to get them to. But I think in this room over here, let's see it, Todd. Yeah. And in this room over here, we could still see some really great patrol tactics. We've got access to an EVOC course this year, full track, as well as a skid pad. We have St. Louis Range, cat's out of the bag, is coming back this year. So there's some really great training spaces available. And I want to challenge people to start thinking very creatively about what you're doing well in your agency and how to bring that to us so that we can all improve as trainers. I'm excited. Where do those two things?
You want to let the cat out of the bag a little further about the range stuff or to be continued later?
Let's continue that later. Maybe you and I text in one of these private chats here, sir, so I remember what you're talking about.
Well, hey, folks, you cannot go to the conference if you don't have a membership. So let's check your membership, make sure you're not expired, make sure it doesn't expire before the conference, update your profile on the ILEETA website and get that stuff, make sure it's current. We know a lot of people kind of transfer to some agencies and maybe retire and go to a place where you're training for another company or something. So get that information current and make sure that you're able to come to the ILEETA conference. Want to make sure you guys are subscribed to the latest content that ILEETA is putting out. So subscribe to the ILEETA YouTube channel. Pretty easy to find. Just type in ILEETA on YouTube and boom, you're right there. So subscribe to that as well. And let's talk about, Joe, the book of the month.
Yeah. Let me tell you, I mean, Antonio Zozosa, Instructor Z, is a fully committed member of ILEETA, not just in terms of what he does at the conference each and every year, but he is invested in each and every member and is just a true friend to all of us. So let's, just pause for a second to acknowledge that his book being selected by our members is a testament to who he is as a member of this team and somebody who is, absolutely committed to what we do and how we do it. And I think I just stepped on you there, Brian. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, Brian, tell them about it. The book of the month is the Ultimate Police Trainers Playbook from Antonio Zozosa or Instructor Z. And what's interesting is David Villasang, who is with DXI Training Solutions, which I got an announcement about them here in just a second as well. I saw a post from him unrelated to this, but he was in an instructor development cohort on Zoom and reading from this book. So, Z, you've done a great job with it. I've read it myself. My perspective is, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what the other ILEETA members have to say about it this month.
Great book. If you haven't got it, grab that book. But this is a good segue into our instructor development video. And if you guys don't have anything else to news or events or anything, we'll jump right into our instructor development video from Instructor Z.
Hello everyone, my name is Antonio Zarzosa and I'm delighted to be here. It is truly an honor to speak to you. Let me start by telling you a little bit about me and what we are going to speak about in this session. Does it sound familiar? Of course it does. See, too many instructors start their sessions this exact same way. Bland, predictable, disconnected. They miss the mark before they ever get off the ground. And yes, they mean well. They have good intentions, no doubt about it. But you already know what they say about good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's why being intentional is not enough anymore. You may be intentional and still be boring. You know, being intentional has kind of become a buzzword. It's like the flavor of the month. The standard needs to be raised. We must be deliberate, not just intentional. And this is where my book comes in. It provides you with a proven framework to open your sessions with impact. The goal is simple: inspiration before information. Do not start by telling your audience what you're going to teach about. Tell them why they need it. This way, you present the problem first so that selling the solution becomes effortless. The START framework sets the tone, sets the stage, but the ENDED framework seals the deal. Let's keep raising the bar. Open strong, close stronger, and always train with purpose. And to my ILEETA family, thank you for selecting my book as the book of the month for the month of August 2025. Thank you for making this possible. To everyone that was part of this, muchas gracias.
Great book, great instructor, great message. But hey, we have a guest we need to bring on, and I think it's time to bring Frank on. So our next guest is Frank Trammer, and he is a police chief in Georgia. Done a lot of great things, and I'm going to bring Frank on. And Frank, welcome to ILEETA Live. We are glad that you graced us with your presence and give us some of your wisdom. But before we start off, tell our members a little bit about yourself, that many of our folks that may not know who Frank is.
Yeah, first, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to share this evening. I was really humbled by the invite, and so just glad to be here this evening, and glad to share all those that are viewing and all those that will view in the future, just to share a little bit of information with you. I think that as trainers, our job's not always to teach somebody something new, but to remind them maybe of things that they've forgotten. And so hopefully, if nothing more, this evening be a little bit of encouragement to just get us to reflect and think upon what we could be doing as leaders to improve our organizations and our culture. And I heard Todd talking a little bit earlier about culture and something he was looking forward to for the upcoming ILEETA conference, and something I'm very passionate about. I'm glad to be talking to you all about this evening. But just a little bit about me, because you all know the best that anybody ever is going to look is on their resume, right? And so the only thing really important to know is that I'm Frank, and I'm here to help. I really am with the government, and I'm here to help. But I've been in the business for 25 years, policing. Started my career up in Columbus, Ohio. Had the opportunity to come down to Atlanta, get out of the cold confines of Ohio, and work with the Atlanta Police Department, a couple other local jurisdictions here. Served as the assistant chief over at Georgia Tech University for a short period of time, for about 7 years. I guess it's not really a short period of time. And then had really a unique opportunity in 2021 to build a police department from the ground up. And it was quite an adventure. It was really a lot of fun, but it wasn't without challenge. You all know in 2021, we're coming out of a pandemic. So building up a police department amidst a global supply chain shortage, the Great Resignation, and post-pandemic, it was challenging, but we did it. And so that's what I hope to talk to you a little bit about this evening, about that experience, about how we intentionally designed the culture, things that we've learned over the last couple of years, and just some things we're doing now that are working for us and may be a benefit to others that are viewing this evening. So again, thank you for the opportunity to share.
Or glad you're here. And my gosh, I've got a lot of questions that popped into my mind, and just as you're doing your introduction. But I'm just curious, what are some of the challenges that you faced as you are starting up a police department?
There's not a playbook for starting a police department. I probably should have written one, and I don't know how much money I would have made off of that, because I'm not sure how many of those actually start up. I know it's not frequent, but there's a lot involved in just getting the department up and operational. But also I think the most important part is being very intentional about selection. And I think in many respects we have a hiring process. We don't have a selection process. And it's really important for us to differentiate between the two. It's not just about bringing people into the organization who have, a semi-clean background and can do the job. It's really being intentional about bringing the right people in. And one of the things that I guess is unique about me is this startup endeavor is actually the second time that I've been part of a startup. It's the first time in the role as the chief executive, but I had the opportunity to be part of the startup of another agency back in 2006, the Sandy Springs Police Department. It's the 7th largest city in the state of Georgia. And it was the first time this had been done in a number of years. And I was one of the inaugural officers that was hired to be part of that. And so I got to see it from a different seat, and got to experience the culture and learn from that experience things that I did differently in building our organization. And one of those things, we had some just amazing people, very credentialed law enforcement professionals that were part of the startup of that agency. And honestly, I'm not certain how I was even selected to be one of the inaugural members amongst the many who had obviously many more years of training experience and credentials that I didn't possess, but was thankful to have the opportunity. And what the focus was on was on that. It was on the resume. It was how many years, what certifications, and those things are important. They obviously are. But what I learned is most important is who the person is. And it's not necessarily hiring for skill. It's not necessarily hiring for experience. It's hiring for character. And so that was one of the things that was really important to me when we started the department, is to make sure that when we were bringing in people, that we were bringing in people first. Because you can train skills, but you cannot train character, I don't believe. That's something that grown adults are coming into your organization with. And so hiring people that have a heart of service, that have a positive attitude, that have a passion for the profession, it's really important to make sure we get that right on the front end. And so that was our focus. We really wanted to hire people that truly cared. And so we had a lot of success too, surprisingly, amidst that period of time where we're dealing with a lot of people leaving the profession of law enforcement. We had over 1,100 applications for 58 positions.
Wow.
And so what that signaled to me was there are people out there who still want to do this work. And it was a matter of finding a place where they felt like they belong, and finding a place that really fed them. And that was one of the things we asked on the first day that we brought all our new team members on board. Is, what brought you here? Why are you here? And it was the vision. It was what we were aspiring to do, and they wanted to be part of an organization that was people-centric, that provided growth and development opportunities, high accountability, but a place where they could grow and thrive and feel like they belong and they can contribute. And so that's the environment that we really have been intentional about cultivating in our organization. And culture exists not just in organizations; it exists in all areas of life, in our families, in groups and teams that we're part of. And we have to understand it's a living, breathing thing that you constantly have to care for it. And obviously the root of culture comes from the Greek word, which means to cultivate. So we can all envision the gardening analogy, and you have to work the soil. If you're going to have something grow and thrive and be effective, you can't just plant it and forget it. I mean, because weeds are going to set in and things are going to shrivel and die. And so you have to be very involved in that process, constantly looking to refine it. And one of the things that's it's not always pleasant, but it's important in culture, is you have to understand the pruning process too, is that you'll find that that there may be people that are not working that have the potential to really take you off track. And that's one of the things that we don't do well in our profession. When we identify, we do a great job of holding people accountable for results. You didn't turn this report in time. You didn't, do whatever. You fill in the blank there. But when it comes to behavior, we just tolerate that. We say, oh, that's just Joe. That's just Brian. That's just Todd. And if we really want a thriving culture, we have to be just as concerned with the behavior as we do the results. And it's important. You've heard the expression, a bad apple spoils the bunch, and it's absolutely true. And so you have to be willing to make those difficult decisions and to prune out people that don't fit in your culture. And, a lot of times you hear the word culture, it can be a little difficult for people to grasp because it's living and breathing, and it's just like the air. You can feel it, but you can't always see how it's operating within the organization, but it's always active, it's always alive in everything that we're doing.
Love it. Hey, I want to kind of circle back and pull the thread on something you offered a second ago. While there was so much in there that I think we could probably all dive into different pieces of that. But one of the things you said was you had 1,100 something. Correct me if I'm wrong.
1,100 applications for
58 positions. And when you kind of explored why that was, you said it was because of the vision. I think the majority of the people who will watch this podcast, while there certainly are some administrators and some executives among us, and you are a great example of one of those, the majority of people who will see this will get the other opportunity, that starting a new project or taking over the training division or maybe standing up a new academy, that sort of thing, at less of the executive level. How did you communicate that vision in a way that inspired that in advance of applications to kind of start communicating that? And how can those who will take on a project do something similar?
Yeah, so we leveraged social. I mean, it's kind of a big deal when we were starting up. A lot of people get excited about new opportunities. But sometimes it doesn't always manifest in pulling the trigger and coming into the organization. So we did a lot of virtual town halls, recruiting town halls, where my team and I, and even our elected officials were on there. And they were there, and it was important for them to be there so that they could hear and they could reinforce the level of support that they had for the officers. Because you have to think 2020, 2021, a lot of officers just feeling discouraged because they weren't supported. And so we wanted them to hear from our government officials, our elected leaders, about how important this police department was, that they shared the same vision for what we were trying to do. And, our role as a leader, it's not to give everybody everything they want and to take care of your people like, we've seen to their detriment at times. It's like being a parent. You have to, really care for them. And I use this word in my organization a lot. A lot of people doesn't get used often in leadership circles, but I love my people. I really do. I care for them deeply, and it doesn't mean that I always like them, because there's a difference between the word love and like. There's some days that I don't like my kid, right? But I love them, absolutely. And the same thing's true about the people in the organization. When you love your people, you're always doing what's right by them and in their best interest. They may not always like it, but if you're doing it because you truly care about them and who they are, it makes a difference. And so that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to create an environment where people truly felt appreciated and valued and cared for. And so we talked to them. Our vision, we have an internal and external vision. Our vision internally was to create the greatest workplace culture of any police department in the world. We wanted to be the Chick-fil-A of policing, and that's what we were telling the folks, is we want you to be part of this. We want to create something that doesn't exist, and we want you to be part of that. We know that there are a lot of people who still want to do this, and it's not that they've lost passion for the job. I think they've lost hope in the leadership and the culture and the organization. And so we want you to come here and help us build this. We want you to be a part of that. I don't know if you all know, you probably do, that Forbes puts out a list every year of the top 100 organizations in the world to work for. And it's a fascinating process. There's a book called A Great Place to Work, and it chronicles and documents how they go through this process and evaluate and vet these corporations. These companies are the greatest places to work. And they really do a great job of laying out the things that are present in those cultures that make those organizations thrive and one of the greatest places to work. But there's never been a police department that's been on that list. And so that's our hope. We want to be, make the Forbes top 100 of the greatest police departments in the world. to work for. And so, a lot of times when people have a vision or mission statement, it's just a bunch of words. It doesn't mean anything. So we wanted people to feel it. And that's what we did. We talked about it all the time, is we're trying to create this great culture. We want to be, have this as an experience unlike anything else that you ever experienced. And we want you to come be part of it. And people were excited about that. And they wanted to come and they wanted to help us build that. And so I think it's really important in any endeavor, whether it's launching an organization or it's launching a new initiative. There's a saying that says, without vision, people will perish. As a leader, as a trainer, your job is to provide direction. It's to provide guidance to your people. And it has to be a compelling vision. You have to give them a reason, something to buy in. They have to know why it matters and what role they play in the contribution that they make in that, if you really want to inspire them to go along that journey with you.
I think, when we talk about culture, I think culture is a foundational element of whether it's a workplace or our families, our towns, our communities. But I think culture is foundational. Moods, on the other hand, are fluid, right? They can kind of come and go based on some things that are happening. But if we set a culture that truly is foundational, then we can always come back to that as our bedrock of who we are and what we stand for. You mentioned earlier sometimes you just had to prune the tree. How do you keep the culture as your foundation during those inevitable mood swings when something like pruning the tree occurs?
Yeah, I think that it's important, and we talked to our team a lot about this. When we talked to them about creating this environment, people got really excited about it. And then when we started to experience things that are challenging, they maybe said in some respects, like, oh, this is not what I signed up for. Like, I don't, and that's because you're dealing with people, and people are complicated. And so you're going to have conflict, and you're going to have disagreements, and you're going to have things. And so what we had to get them all to understand is we have to work together, that this is something that we're all working towards. And I think that the way that you navigate around that is, and it ties into something that's just as important as the mission and vision, that's your organizational values. And you really have to live those values out. They can't, again, just be words on a wall. It has to be something that you truly live and breathe every day. And it has to be shared and refined by everybody in the organization. And so we wanted to create an organization that cared for our people. As a matter of fact, our core values in our organization, in an acrostic, it spells CARES, and it stands for character. And so we talk to people a lot about character. And I like to use the word character. You hear people talk about what values are important. And we hear in some regards, people talk about honesty and integrity. Well, integrity, it means to be whole. And you can be a person who's living out an integrous life and just not have good values. And so I like the word character, because character means choosing a path of courage or compromise. And when I talk to our team members about character and why that's important to us, it's doing what's right, not what's easy. And I give them an example. If you're driving a Stockbridge police car home at the end of the day, and you see somebody, stalled in the middle of the interstate, you've worked a 12-hour shift, you're on your way home, but you're driving that police car. You're a police officer. They don't care if you're Stockbridge or whatever jurisdiction it is. It's our expectation that doing the right thing is stopping in that moment and offering assistance to somebody. And so we want our team members to know that that's what's expected of you. The other thing that kind of ties into what you were asking about is the A stands for attitude. An attitude of positivity is extremely important to us. I believe that we all choose our attitude when we come in every day. And when you have those moments that you're talking about, we understand that there's going to be ups and downs, but you can't stay here. We don't tolerate negative attitudes. We don't tolerate people talking about one another. That's not who we are. Because at the end of the day, that's what culture is. Culture is the way that we do things around here, and your values really define how you operate collectively as a team. And so we have that as a core value, and we talk to people. You've heard people say, what's wrong with you? I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. We will pay you to go back home and get yourself in bed and roll out on the right side, because it's that important for us, And so we really emphasize that with our team members. And then the R stands for respect, and it's not just respecting the community. It starts internally. We don't gossip about one another. We don't talk about one another. We support one another. We lift each other up. That's what we do in this organization. And so when we see people behaving out of alignment with our organizational culture, it's expected that all the leaders lean into that and say, hey, that's not how we do things around here. Like we've got to do better. The E stands for excellence. Nobody's perfect. We know that. But excellence is always striving to be better tomorrow than we were yesterday. And so that's something that we always want to encourage, is continual growth and development in an environment of failing forward and giving people an opportunity to learn and grow from their mistakes. And we talk a lot in sports analogies. Matter of fact, our organization, every new team member that comes on board, we give them a football jersey with their badge number on it. And we talk to them about the importance of teamwork and the fact that you make an individual contribution as a member of this team, and we expect you to move the ball down the field. And that's helping us work towards our goals, the things that we've set out to do as an organization. And it's all about forward progress. There may be some days where you get a long pass and you got a lot of positive yardages, but some days it's a struggle just to get, a couple of inches. But the whole intention is are we moving forward? Are we moving forward? Let's just keep the ball moving forward, because I think that's what leaders have to do. It's not always about doing the work. It's about keeping the momentum going. That's what we have to do, is keep the momentum going, keeping everything moving forward and creating that environment. And then the S is for service. And that's what this whole, it doesn't matter what you do. Every organization exists to serve. And it's not about us. It's about, what are you contributing? What are you contributing to the organization? What are you contributing to the team? What are you contributing to the community? And it's expected of the leaders in the organization to make sure that they're committed to serving those who are out there serving people. And so that's what we expect our officers to do, is to go out and provide great service. We expect our leaders to provide exceptional leadership to our team members, to enable them and to equip them to be able to go out and do what it is that we need for them to do. And so as it relates to that, I guess tying it all back together, it's values. It's making sure that we're in alignment, we're living out those values day in and day out. The things that we say are important to us, it's universally shared and re-emphasized by everybody in the organization. We do a big welcoming ceremony, orientation for folks when they come into our department. And most always I'm there for that. If I'm not there, my assistant chief will fill in, but everybody could honestly fill in because they're there. Every time that we bring a new team member on, and we talk to them about our mission, our vision, our values, what those things mean, the rules of our organization. We have a rule called the family rule, and we expect everybody to follow it. It's just treating everybody in every circumstance the way that you would want them to treat the person that you care about the most. And we do those things, we get those things right. We have another word we live by, we have some catchy phrases, I got you. And that's to emphasize the teamwork, because when you see somebody struggling, it's not to point out their faults and the fact that they messed up. We expect you to come in beside them and help them do that. When somebody fumbles a ball on the team, the rest of the team members don't look around and point at the ball and say, hey, look at you, you fumbled the ball. Everybody's going after the ball. And that's what we expect our team members to do, is to come in and to support one another and to lift each other up. If there are people that are not contributing, we have to work with them. We have to coach them to success, or we have to coach them out of the team. And that's another thing that you have to do lovingly sometimes. And I tell folks, but I've had to let them go. Listen, I love you. I really do. You just can't work here anymore. And it's not personal. We can be friends, but, at the end of the day, we have a mission. We have a job to do. And everybody has to be committed and bought into the same high standards if we're going to be effective as an organization.
Love that. So how do you do it? So we got this question, and I know you've given us so much in different ways, but I want to draw attention to this question we got from Instagram. And I didn't get the person's name. It's just his Instagram handle, but he took your class last year or at this year's conference, and the coaching mentality really stuck with him. But he said he's moving from a training switching to being our training coordinator. And one of the things he's looking for, as it says here, is how to make roll call more engaging and pushing our officers to be better while driving the values of our department and community. And I think when we look at this whole cultural spectrum and how to develop culture, are you a thermostat or a thermometer is a great analogy to use, right? A thermometer will tell you what temperature is and whether or not we're a good organization or a bad organization. But a thermostat realizes I can control this where I'm at. And so from your perspective as both a senior leader, but also a dude who's been in the trenches for a while, done some training at every echelon, every level within an agency, give us some guidance that training coordinator and others can take to where they are as they're developing that pragmatic, get stuff done type of training. How do you do it? What would you say?
Yeah, I think as a matter of fact, many of our organizations, we do not capitalize on the roll call. I mean, there are many times roll calls, and I'm sure you all have been to them. They're not motivating anybody to go out and do anything. People are showing up, they're getting their equipment. You know, you're passing along a message that they've gotten in 3 different emails. You know, it's not very encouraging, and you're missing an opportunity to really, if nothing more, it doesn't have to be training centric, but you know, maybe you can just encourage them and just talk to them about, you know, the importance of what we do. We don't do this. I would like us to get to that point. We're working towards it. We're not there yet. But, you know, you look at the Ritz-Carlton as an example. In their organization, they do a daily lineup, and every day they get together and somebody on their team leads a discussion about one of their core values and why that's important and how they've seen that displayed in somebody else. One of the things that we've recently implemented that hopefully will get us to that point is we implemented a poker chip program. And any member of the department can request a poker chip, and those poker chips are aligned with our organizational core values. So when we have somebody that's demonstrating leadership excellence or tactical excellence, or somebody that's really gone out of their way to serve, we have different colored poker chips, and any member of the team can recognize that because we want to reinforce our organizational values. But I think that a great way too to make roll call more engaging is we do film reviews. Like we'll have something come up, maybe an officer was it could be on their shift, on another shift, was involved in a pursuit or responded to a call that had some peculiarities to it, and use that to just play that video and to have a conversation, have a discussion, and turn that into a learning moment. And so that's one of the things we've really been intentional in doing, is trying to build a culture where people are not averse to feedback, because we want that to be a mechanism to get better. And so when we're very different when we do discipline in our organization. We don't, write it up, send it up the chain of command. We get the people in the chain of command together, and we'll all sit together and we'll look at that video and we'll evaluate it. And then we'll bring the people involved and say, tell me what you were thinking. Walk me through this. Help me understand this. What was your thought process? And as we're working through that, it's an opportunity to say, well, did you think about this? Or what about this? And so we turn that into a training opportunity. Because really, the root word of discipline means to teach. And that's what we really want people to do, is we want them to learn from those things. So roll call, you could use, film reviews, pick a topic. There's plenty of videos online that you can pull out every day to, share and emphasize something. You can take a snippet from this segment here and just say, hey, listen, let's watch this 5-minute clip and let's have a conversation as a team about this. What do you think about this? How can we, do better in this regard in our organization? And so there's just all sorts of ways, but it starts with intentionality, just leaning into that and figuring out, okay, how can I engage our team? Another great way that you can capitalize on a roll call, it doesn't always have to be a training opportunity, but a reinforcement opportunity, is when you see people out there doing good work, is just use that as an opportunity to recognize them and to call to mention, their commitment. Maybe they picked up some extra shifts and helped the team out. Maybe they made a good decision on a tactical call or something along those lines. There are just so many things that you can do beyond just passing on information that, could be better communicated, quite honestly, in an email, than using that valuable 10, 15, 20 minutes you have in a roll call to really capitalize on either improving your culture or improving your teammates.
Love it. And just as you were talking about the video, we got an Instagram comment almost the exact same time about using videos in roll call. I love that advice. Sorry, over to you. I think, Todd, you had something you were about to ask.
No, I was going to give it over to Brian.
Oh, I just wanted to circle back to the L word, the love word. I just had to look this up, but I think we talked about this with Chip Huth. Am I right, guys? Chip talked a lot about the love word. But August 22nd, almost 2 years ago to the date, 2023, we had Chip Huth on ILEETA Live, and we did a lot of leadership discussions, and the L word came up. And And I think a lot of times when Todd and Joe and I stop talking to each other, we're like, I love you, man.
Love
But
you,
I
bro.
think that,
Yeah.
yep, love you, brother. I think that is great. The agency does that, and getting that machoism, everybody, oh, L word, we can't be saying that, but
Right.
no, I think it's important. It's one of the, I think one of the foundations of leadership is relationship building, and that builds upon that relationship with your troops and your, not only your troops, but their family. Hey, my chief said he loves me. And what more powerful way to encourage more people to come to your agency than a family value philosophy? That is great. That's just that's powerful. But
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's worked well for us, and we did a great job of bringing leaders into the organization that share that share that perspective. And so it's just very encouraging to see that we have a very open, welcoming environment. One of the things that we recently implemented, I don't know if you all have ever heard of this book, but there's a book by an author named Richard Finnegan. It's called The Power of Stay Interviews. And in many respects in our organization, what we do is we do exit interviews. And when you do an exit interview, it's too late. And in many cases, people are not going to be entirely honest with you about why they left the organization because they don't want to burn a bridge. And the best way to really get honest, candid feedback from your team and to be able to reinforce the culture there is to be intentional about talking with them about what's going on right now. And it is very insightful. And one of the things that we learned from our stay interviews, we asked them, what do you like, or what are the positive elements of the culture here? What brings you to work every day? And they say it's the family atmosphere. It's the environment. I'm around good, positive people that I really truly feel care for me. And that's a huge tool in retaining people, in your organization. It doesn't mean that we don't hold people accountable. It's not just about letting, folks come to work and do whatever they want to, and it's about having a good time. We still have high degree of accountability, but everybody knows that, we care about you, and you can lean into a difficult conversation, and tell somebody, listen, I think you can do better. I think you have more in you. And they're very receptive to that if they feel that you truly are in their corner and you care. And that's what a lot of people, you come in and I think there was, it said rules without relationship equals rebellion. I heard somebody say that, and it's very true. You come in and start laying down the law and rules and you don't have the relationship, then it makes it very difficult to have a thriving culture. When people know that you're in their corner and you're telling them this because I love you. As a matter of fact, I do that. And they know, like maybe some not positive news is coming their way when I sit down with them and say, hey, listen, I love you, right? And they know what's coming next, but I've got to talk to you about this because I care about you and you can do better, or I need to see something else out of you, or this is not in keeping with who you are, who we are as an organization, and this has to stop. And so people are very receptive to that.
Yeah. At the risk of, making it sound, paternal and somewhat condescending, it's the same tone we take with those closest to us, right? Our kids, when we're having those conversations. And while I think it's incredibly insulting sometimes to look at our employees, our constituents in any way as our children, I think, though, the sentiment extends just the same. And I think you'd agree that if you sit down and you approach it from that position and you have that genuine conversation with, I am coming from a position of love. I have the most gracious interpretation of this situation. And I'm going to give that to you, and let them kind of feel that, then it really doesn't matter what comes next. And quite often people realize that if you're going to have those hard conversations with you, they need it. They deserve that from you as their leadership. So thanks for sharing that with us, Chief. That's good stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree with Joe. Having a hard conversation with somebody is difficult. Being on the other end of that difficult conversation is just as hard, but it makes it a lot easier when you know that they're coming from a position of caring, a position of love, as opposed to a position of gotcha, right? There's it's a totally different conversation, and it's a totally different reception of the information at that point. I listening to this conversation is really interesting because, I mentioned earlier that I just sent off my journal article to Carrie, and a lot of what we're talking about here is referenced in that article. And one of the things that I think is absolutely critical to any organization is to develop a foundational culture that can carry you through good and bad times in a department. You need to have leadership at every position. It can't just be leadership from the top down. It's got to be leadership at every level of your organization: lateral leadership, leadership up the chain of command, leadership down the chain of command, because none of us can be on 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. So how do you as the chief, and how does your organization foster that sense of 360 degrees of leadership in support of that cultural message that you're talking about?
It is in many respects reinforcing values. One of the things that we do every month is we have what we call a sync meeting. It's with our entire leadership team. It's a mandatory meeting. We have 2 mandatory meetings every month. We have our problem oriented policing meeting, and then we have our sync meeting. Our sync meeting is more just to talk about what's going on organizationally, but it's also an opportunity for them to hear from leadership about the things that we need to see more of, or the things that we expect, or really to reinforce the values. And we're constantly telling them that our frontline leadership, you are the most important person in this equation, because whether these team members come to work every day and fully contribute the discretionary effort they have, and how they go out and treat the public and how they interact with one another is largely contingent upon you. And you shape the experience that they have each and every day. You're the most important person here. And so we want to support you and help you to be successful. And we talk to them too about, as a leader, and I just had this, we're just going through promotions right now, and sat down with all of our leaders that are moving into a position and had a conversation with them and talked to them about, this transition that you're making right now. Is that, you sit on 2 teams. You have a team that you're responsible for. That's the ones that you steward. Those are your children, so to speak. But you also are part of a larger organization, and that team always has to take priority over the team that you report to, or that you're responsible to. And, we need you to understand that we have to have a unified mission, a unified vision, that it can't be, your interpretation of what you think things should be. You have to be bought in at the same, level and understanding that we are. And if you don't understand something, or you have a question about something, you come to us. We can talk to it. We create an environment where I think everybody feels comfortable in speaking up, because we want to equip you with the answers so you can go out and you can answer the why. I don't expect you to agree with everything that we do, but we do the best we can to try to explain it to you so that you understand why we're doing something and why it matters. And we're open to feedback too. So if something comes up and we can do it a better way, we demonstrate to them too that we're teachable, that we're malleable, that we're willing to truly figure out the best solution and not our solution. And that goes a long way in terms of garnering buy-in. But other things that we do is, I was told coming into leadership, you need to have an open door policy. And so I had an open door policy, but the problem is nobody ever comes in the door. And it's not because I think they're afraid, or they just don't want to bother you. You're busy, you're the chief, you're the boss. And it's always, there's some trepidation when they're coming through the front door. So I said, we have to have an empty seat policy. We all have to get out of this office. We got to get out and meet people where they are. We have to talk to them. And it's leadership by example. And so as they see us interacting and answering questions and engaging with people, it's an opportunity to demonstrate to them what we expect of them in their roles as leaders. And we do a lot of coaching and pulling people in and have conversations about maybe how this could have gone differently, or what we expect of you in a situation like this. You just, case in point, we had last sync meeting, supervisor brought something to light that we were having this huge issue with we have a major hospital in our city, and everybody seems to drop everybody off at the hospital, and we're getting called out here all the time. And so they presented as a big problem we need to do something about. We need to have a meeting with the hospital security, and because their officers told them this, and they believe their officers. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But you say, okay, well, have you gone back and looked at the call history? If you give me the example, tell me what it is that happened. Come to find out, like, we've been there a handful of times over the last month. It wasn't the type of problem that they presented. And so we're talking to them about, how do you, you have to teach them is what I'm getting at, is you have to use those examples to really help your people understand how to lead and how to think, and to make better decisions, and to bring solutions and not problems to the table. And there are a lot of mistakes that are caused by good intentions, and we talk to our team about those a lot of times, about having too much empathy. Like we're an organization, we care about people, we love our people, but overly empathetic leaders can lose your ability to know, that they have to do things in the greater good of the organization. And sometimes that may not be always in the best interest of the individual. And so you have to think about, how does this impact us as a system? And then two, the inability to say no is something that a lot of leaders struggle with. And so we have to talk with them, about that. And, not owning everybody's challenges. And that was kind of what I was getting to, is people bring you things and it's not your responsibility. Like, you look into those things, you have to fix those things, but you have to let your employees take responsibilities for solving their own issues. Just like with your kids, you can't fix everything for them. And then not establishing accountability is a big thing that, I think is important for leaders to understand. They don't want to be seen as a micromanager, but there's a difference between holding somebody accountable and being a micromanager. And so to sum up and to get back to the question you asked, is it's leading by example. It's getting out there, it's having those conversations, it's creating opportunity for dialogue, and an opportunity to get out and to teach.
Hey, there's a question down here. I'm looking forward to hearing your response on it. I certainly have some opinions, but do you send your personnel to leadership training before or after you promote them?
We provide leadership training before, and so we front load that. And I think you have to prepare people for an opportunity before the opportunity presents itself. We get this backwards in our profession. There's no other profession. You can't go out and cut somebody's hair till you've been to barber school. Why are we going to entrust you with the responsibility of people who have one of the most influential positions in the world without equipping you and providing you with the training and the tools that you need? It's a recipe for disaster. And so we have to provide people with that on the front end, both leadership and supervision management training. They're not the same, but we have to equip them with those skill sets on the front end. Having a good supervisory FTO program, and then a sustainability model. It's not just a one and done type event. It has to be something that's continual and ongoing in your organization. As a matter of fact, if you go back and you were to look at President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, the 6 pillars that relate to training and education, one of the recommendations of that council was to provide training in leadership development for all personnel, not just for those who have a leadership position, for all personnel throughout their careers, not just one time, but throughout their entire careers. And we don't see that. And you have the hard side of things, and that's the more tactical, hands-on, tangible skills, the supervision management, which is important. And you have the soft side. But you need both of those things. It requires a blending, and we have to prepare people and teach those folks those skills before we entrust them with people to go out and lead, because you can make a mess. You can make a disaster of things if you don't provide people with those tools on the front end.
Absolutely. Thanks.
That's funny, because I was going to ask a similar question to that, because I think so many agencies get it wrong. I'm a firm believer in leadership should be taught in basic academy all the way up through your retirement. But I want to kind of shift gears here as we're kind of winding down. I see you've been involved with John Maxwell's training. Are there any principles that you've utilized from John Maxwell's training into shaping your law enforcement leaders there in your department?
I've used a lot of John's stuff. As a matter of fact, I guess it's a good segue from the previous question there. A great mentor of mine, really the reason that I am who I am and where I am today. I guess one of the worst moments in my whole leadership journey was a moment I had a sit-down conversation with this leader after a 360 evaluation. And I thought I was doing great because our team was highly effective. We were out accomplishing results. We were, leading in all those measurable dimensions. And then I received some critical feedback about, my team members said that they don't feel like you really care for them. And, he told me, he said, I don't think they really like you. And at this juncture, I've been policing or been a supervisor for about 2 years. And everybody told me your job as a leader is not to be liked, is to get the job done. It doesn't matter if people like you and this, that, and the other. And so he said, Frank, you have to understand, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that stuck with me. And he said, but I've got to take some ownership for this. He said, we never set you up for success, didn't provide you with any training before we entrusted you with this opportunity. And so we're going to get you in some leadership training, but I'm going to give you this book to read. And the book that he gave me is a book called Developing a Leader Within You that was written by John Maxwell. And at the time, I wasn't really interested in leadership books. I mean, if it wasn't Guns and Ammo or Muscle and Fitness, I really wasn't interested in reading it. And I had sort of a green eggs and ham moment. I got the book, I started to read through it, and being a person of faith, I was able to see how the leadership principles in there applied not to just how you lead at work, but how you lead in all areas of your life. And so it really made an impact for me. And from that's really was the catalyst for me to become involved in John Maxwell's leadership training. And so I use a lot of his resources. They're one of my favorite that I teach is the 5 levels of leadership. And it's really a very practical method to help leaders grow their influence. And, we all start at the positional level of leadership. We get a title. And unfortunately, a lot of people stay at that level, is that they only get things done by virtue of the title that they hold. And if you take that title away from them, you're not going to get anything done. And he says the next level of leadership is the relationship level. And that's what I hadn't figured out. That's what Terry taught me. That's what that book taught me, was that it's about relationships. That when you are in the leadership business, you're in the people business, and you can't be in the people business and not like people. You have to truly be somebody who understands and appreciates. And it doesn't mean you have to be an extroverted, charismatic, super relational person, but you just have to care. And your people have to know that you care. So you get in there and you start building the relationship. That's the first thing you do. And then the third level is the production level. And that's where you have to be a competent leader. People are looking to you for advice and guidance and instruction. They're not expecting you to have all the answers or know everything, but you have to invest in yourself. And we've seen leaders that have a lot of years, but they stop learning. They don't go to training. They're not improving. And they're, the minute that your team members stop coming to you for advice and guidance is the day that you stop leading them. So it's important for us to continue to remain relevant. And those are the essential elements of being an effective leader. You have to care about your people, and you have to be competent, because you're the coach. You can't coach if you don't know how to play the game. So you have to be competent. And then he talks about another level, a level beyond that. And that's the reproduction level. And I think that's where a lot of leaders, we all could do a better job. And that's about growing other leaders. There truly is no success without a successor. We have to be committed to developing other people and mentoring those that are coming up, and making sure that we leave the profession better than we found it. The same thing with trainers is, who are you training to take over your position? You're not going to be able to do this forever. So what are we doing to build that type of culture in our organization also is really important.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big fan of John Maxwell. Got a whole bunch of his books I need to, dust off and reread some of those. But we're right up an hour here, and I want to go around the horn. Joe, any final questions, final thoughts for Frank?
So first of all, that hour went super fast, but you have a tendency of doing that to me, Chief, where we'll get in these conversations and I'll just shut up and listen, which those who know me know that's something I don't do often. So thank you very much for being here. One of the things that I want to get your thoughts on is, from the Chief's perspective, and somebody who's been a trainer and involved with ILEETA for a long time, from chief to chief or to another administrator out there, why send your people to the ILEETA conference and encourage your trainers to be members of this organization?
Well, I think quite simply, and I was thinking about this as you all were talking about what we need to see more of, and there's a misnomer that you have to be the IT school, you got to be a trainer to go to ILEETA or to be, a law enforcement. Every person in a leadership position, your FTO, everybody in a leadership position, you're a trainer, you're a coach, you have a responsibility for helping your people, do the job better. And so this isn't just for those who are instructors. This is for anybody who's in a position of influence in the organization to come and learn skills to be more effective in teaching and training your people, because that's what it's all about. That's what our responsibility is. And even if you're not in a leadership position, even if you're a senior officer, or you're just maybe a few steps ahead of somebody else, it's an opportunity for you to grow so that you have an opportunity to contribute to those that are a few steps behind you and prepare you for future opportunities. Again, I think a lot of people, they think that this is for trainers, but everybody needs to understand you're a trainer. If you're a leader, you're a trainer.
Love it. Thank you.
Todd.
Kind of on that same theme, are we going to see you at the conference in 2026? And without giving away your thoughts and ideas, do you have a class prepped, and what might that be about?
I have a couple of things in mind. I was listening to the conversation before I was brought out on stage, and I'm working through a couple of things. I know the deadline's on the 31st. I definitely will be submitting a couple of proposals, and look forward to joining you all again out in St. Louis in March. And so I don't have anything right now, but I promise you, whatever it is, you won't want to miss.
Cool.
Looking forward to it. My last question for you, what's one leadership book that everybody should be reading?
One leadership book that everybody should be reading. I'm going to tell you my favorite book, my new favorite book, and it's not the typical book. It's a book written by Bill Walsh, who was the former head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. It's called The Score Takes Care of Itself. The Score Takes Care of Itself. And he talks about creating a culture of excellence in your organization. And many people, I didn't know this at the time, it was very fascinating, but the 49ers at that point in time when he took over that team was considered the worst professional sports team in any NBA, MLB. It was considered the worst professional sports franchise. And in the span of 2 years, he came in and he turned that organization around and took them to a Super Bowl and multiple Super Bowls after that. And he did that not by coming in with the goal to win the Super Bowl. It was to create a standard of excellence and to implement those things that we were talking about, the culture, the values, the expectations, how we treat one another, how we show up, how we practice. Those are the things that he focused on. And that's the whole premise of the book. He said, if we focus on those small things and we do those things consistently well, then the score will take care of itself.
Sounds good. Maybe a recommendation for next month, book of the month, possibly. But hey, we just hit the hour mark, and I want to thank you for your time, your valuable time, and your wonderful words of wisdom and insight. I could sit here and pick your brain all night. I just in awe of all the wonderful leadership nuggets that you have given us tonight. So thank you very much.
No, again, it's an honor. I appreciate the opportunity to share. Same here. We could talk all night long about this. I'm really passionate about it, love it. And it's always good to be in the company of others who share the same passion.
No doubt.
All right. We look forward to seeing all you guys here next month on ILEETA Live, and stay tuned for the next guest for September. Just had to realize it was August again. So September 2025. Look forward to seeing you next year in ILEETA there, Frank. Thanks for your time.
Look forward to seeing y'all as well.
Y'all have a great night.
You too. Take care.